Happy Tuesday. Welcome to the Scoop World Order, the Matt Patricia interview edition. What went on behind the scenes? Are we close to getting our new defensive coordinator? What's the timeline like? I mean, we've got spring ball coming pretty quick here. We've got winter workouts starting already, 6 a.m.s, which the whole staff's a part of, is starting in the next couple weeks. So, yeah, it's a little delayed just because of the deep playoff run, but Matt Patricia killed it today. So we're going to see if he is our next defensive coordinator and why. That would make a lot of sense for Ryan Day and Ohio State's 2025 edition that we're about to put on the field. So with that being said, if you guys enjoy our content, please leave us a like, click subscribe, let's click that little alert bell. Again, we had a huge show last night. We're going to have a huge one tonight. We appreciate you guys being a part of this. Again, if you guys really want to help us out, give us a follow on Apple Podcasts. Do it inside your iPhone, your iPad. Any of your friends who have iPhones, iPads, grab them and just subscribe to us real quick. Again, it's been huge. And keep spreading the good word on YouTube. We've been growing YouTube at a rapid clip. We are closing in on some milestones, getting close to 40,000. So spread the good word, folks. We appreciate you guys bringing the heat every night. And we're going to have a huge show tonight. So I'm going to get right into it with Nevada. Nevada, the Woody Hayes has been as hot as ever. Matt Patricia in the building, getting interviewed by Ryan Day. Ryan has to figure out what he wants to do defensively. I think that Matt Patricia is far and away the best option. I think he'd be a fantastic addition to the staff. I think that, for Ryan, he's got his nuts on the line basically every year. And I mean, when you're a guy that's got to worry about getting ready for the Texas game and Steve Sarkisian, and I mean, Tim Walton's called plays. It's been a long time, and Matt Gray did it at Indiana and Duke, and Matt Patricia did it in Super Bowls, and he won Super Bowls, and he was excellent at it. So I don't think that there's any question that he'd be the best option to play chess against Steve Sarkisian week one. But what are your thoughts, and what have you heard about the interview that Ryan Day had with Matt Patricia, and where does it all stand as of 7:10 on Tuesday?
Well, I mean, I'm hearing it's a done deal. I'm hearing that that Patricia's going to be the next DC at Ohio State. So, I mean, everyone's expecting that. Everybody within the program, everybody around the program, people in the agent community, they feel like it's all but it's fait accompli. And obviously for it's not like Matt Patricia hasn't coached in the college ranks. It's been a bit, but he's been in the college ranks before, and he kind of knows what to expect. He's a smart guy. Ryan Day, obviously a brilliant mind. A guy that knows what he needs on that side of the ball. He needs an adult. He needs somebody to be able to, especially with Brian Hartline being the offensive coordinator on the other side, where that means Ryan's going to have to spend more time with the offense than ever. And now you've got a situation where the defense is going to be in the hands of a former NFL Super Bowl winning defensive coordinator. And this, as you've said, he's a walk around defensive coordinator. So you've got all the positions filled. He can kind of oversee everything. And it's really kind of a perfect fit for what Ryan Day wants, for what Ryan Day needs. And the thing that gets me the most excited is how excited the people inside the program are about him, because that's unusual, because a lot of time there's apprehension, there can be concern, there can be hurt feelings, there can be people feeling they were slighted or passed over, or what can this guy do for us? And man, I'm not getting any of that. I'm getting, wow, I'm really liking this. I really hope this comes to pass. I'm really excited about the possibilities of working. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that you're getting, and that gets me excited. That gets me excited, and that gets me through any trepidation or concerns that that I might have had about him coming into an established defensive room with a bunch of guys that are used to working together, and they're used to working together and doing well at extremely high levels. So I'm excited about it. But let me tell you, I don't want to leave the topic, but I want to mention this before I forget it. The Ohio State team, they put out a video on the greatest run in college football history. I don't know if it came out today, yesterday, or when I saw it today for the first time. And boy, that was good. And boy, that gives you a real sense for the people inside the program, the staff inside the program, and it kind of tells you just kind of the culture and the environment that Matt Patricia's walking into. And if you haven't seen it, Matt, do yourself a favor and watch it. It's on YouTube. I think it's like 24, 25 minutes. It's really good. I mean, it's really, really good. It's NFL film, Steve Sable worthy type of performance, and I don't just throw that stuff around like that. It's really great, but it just gets me excited about what Matt's gonna be walking into. He's walking into a room with a bunch of dudes. With the guys that are returning are terrific. The 2025 team has a chance to be really good. Do I think they're going to be as good as 2024? I don't, because how could you get better than the best team in Ohio State history that ran the biggest gauntlet in Ohio State history? And I think the schedule's tough. I think new coordinators all over the place. But when you have a guy like Matt Patricia on the defensive side, that's a big ace. That's about it. That's about as good a pull as Ryan Day could have done. And I think it certainly sets you up really well for the 2025 season.
Nevada, did you like the 25-minute highlight video?
It was so good. It was so. I tell you, I got so nervous watching it. I mean, it was like, even though I know how it ends, I honestly, I legit was nervous watching. I got this anxiety for these kids just watching how much was on the line and what they were trying to accomplish. And I mean, Lathan Ransom stood up before the playoff and he's like, "Here's what we're going to do. We're going to run Tennessee. We're going to run Oregon. We're going to run through the SEC, and we're going to win the national championship, and we're going to be historic." And it's like, damn if they didn't do it. So, I mean, the kudos, called his shot and then delivered it.
Do you think that Lathan watched our podcast so that he'd know exactly what to say? Because we said the same thing.
I think he did.
You think
I
he
think
said there was
Lathan
like guys, like, we still have a chance to win everything. Like, even if you lose to Michigan and you get beaten to death by the fan base and everybody wants everybody fired and everybody gone and cancel the season. I was like, we still have a chance to win it all. I mean, that's not, I mean, I said that after that Michigan game. I was like, look, that Michigan game, it sucks to lose and it's depressing. And those guys will always feel like a little bit of a pit in their stomach because they didn't beat Michigan. But I was like, dude, they won the big ring. I said that to Jack Sawyer. I'm like, Jack, like, nobody cares. I mean, it sucks losing to Michigan. And, obviously it's disappointing. But, dude, in modern times, if you can run the table and win the national title, nobody cares. Like I said, I mean, how many of you guys that are on this show, put it in the chat, bought some sort of national championship t-shirt or hoodie or hood ornament or snow globe or something with the national championship logo that they literally put on everything? Yes, exactly. Nobody buys a "We Beat Michigan" t-shirt because that's not how we roll. But, there's a lot of these things that are really, I think, silly, if not stupid, that people talk about. And the NFL guy versus the college guy one is like one of the best ones ever, because like Nick Saban was an NFL guy, until he went to LSU, but he was the guy that came up with the Oilers, then the Browns, went to Toledo for a year, Michigan State, LSU, back to Miami. But his first major jobs were, it was DC for the Browns with Belichick. So I mean, that's what really helped him ascend and become great. And I don't know. Like, I mean, can Bill Belichick not coach because he's an NFL guy? Now he's at Carolina. To me, it's not about NFL versus college. It's, do you have the players or not? Because you can be a great coach. Like Bill Belichick, I think he's going to struggle in college because his players aren't going to be very good. Now, he's at a weak conference in the ACC, so he can probably gin it up a little bit. But I don't know. It's like Bill O'Brien being a college guy versus an NFL guy. I think if you're a good coach and you're a communicator, then you'll do great things. It doesn't matter what level you're at. If you're pro guy and college guy, but I think that honestly, it's never been more beneficial to be an NFL guy than right now going into college. I think that college coaches are more shell-shocked dealing with these players that have these crazy rights where they can transfer and they get paid. And like NFL guys have been dealing with that stuff forever. Because even though there's not like a transfer portal where guys can just transfer, like, in the NFL, like Myles Garrett can demand a trade and say, "Hey, I'm leaving. See ya. You don't have any choice. I'm not coming back." So, he basically entered the transfer portal, and the Browns don't really have a choice except for to trade him and try to get some sort of value for him. But I don't know. I think Matt Patricia, because I always look at it from which hire could benefit the most people in the Woody Hayes, in the building? Like, who's going to change the culture and affect things in a positive way? It's like Urban. Like when Urban showed up, now it wasn't fun. It wasn't cupcakes and popsicles. It was like hellfire and brimstone, but it changed the culture. And Luke Fickell got better. Mike Vrabel got better. A lot of the guys that were in there in 2011 that were all in there losing 7 games and sucking an egg. All of a sudden, we all got way better because Urban was there. So, is Matt Patricia Urban? Of course not. But could he bring a lot of the Patriot Way stuff to the building? Yeah, and I think he could do a really good job with it. And I think that people, I keep hearing over and over again that Matt Patricia was not liked by players, or he wasn't liked, or he's in Detroit and nobody liked him. And well, I'm like, nobody likes Bill Belichick, nobody likes Nick Saban, and nobody likes Urban Meyer. I mean, they're abrasive, they're hard to deal with, and they've got their guys. They've got guys that they like and whatever. But I mean, Tom Brady didn't even like Bill Belichick, and they won 7 Super Bowls together, or whatever, or 6 Super Bowls, whatever they won together. So I mean, like, being liked is about 900 millionth on my list of things I care about with a coach. But I keep hearing this about Matt Patricia. They don't like him. Like, well, like, watch like these guys that interview, watch Julian Edelman, and watch these podcasts that he does. Like, it doesn't seem like Julian Edelman hated Matt Patricia. He's like sitting there calling him Matty P, and like Matt Light didn't hate him. Like all these players that were around him and played for him and with him and were around him, like, they didn't hate him. They didn't think he was some sort of abrasive idiot. Now, again, like, I want my coach to be a little edgy, and I don't want him to be, you know what, here's the thing. Here's the one thing I do not want my coach to be. Here's the one thing I don't want a coach at Ohio State to be, is I don't want them to be homies with the players. Because Urban was the best. He said, look, you're not here to make friends. You're here to coach these kids. So, I mean, they're not your boys. You don't go out and drink beers with them on the weekends and whatever and yuck it up. I mean, you're there to coach them. And again, has that line been blurred a little bit? Do I think there's a little bit too much homieism and yucking it up at Ohio State? Sure. But did it work last year? Yeah, it did. I mean, we had overwhelming talent in the coaching staff, overwhelming talent player-wise, and we won a natty. It was great. But in general, I want there to be more of a thick line between, a player and a coach, and less yucking it up and less homieism. And so if Matt Patricia is not like this, great. I mean, Jim Knowles doesn't strike me some guy who's like some, like, I want to be the most beloved human being in the world. Like, he wants the guys to play well. And the way you get liked as a coach is you win and you produce and you make these guys do better than they would have done if you weren't there. So I don't know. I honestly, if we get this thing done, I think it's going to get done. I'm just like you. It'll be a monumental hire for Ryan Day. And I mean this sincerely. Our defense, but the flip of it is our defense is not going to be as good as it was last year. Get that out of the way. Neither is our offense. So, because I think what's going to happen is, we'll hire him. And then, the Jim Knowles, people are like, oh, well, Jim Knowles was great and he was number one. And we had the number one total defense and we were so good on defense. I'm like, well, yeah, because our players were way better. We got to get some of these guys to go from being reserves to being starters. And we got to figure out who our other safeties are going to be with Caleb Downs. We're going to figure out who's going to be our pass rushers on the D line. And we're replacing a ton on offense and defense. So, I think that, if we hire Matt Patricia and then on the flip with Brian Hartline, like, those guys are going to be in the crosshairs of the fan base because we're just not going to be as good. And again, I'm not being negative. I'm just being like, look, guys, we're losing a lot of talent. So I want to say you need to be patient. I know that we won't be, especially since we open with Texas, but I would love to get Matt Patricia. And I think that he'll help develop Brian Hartline. He'll help develop Ryan Day. I mean, Matt Patricia, like, as good as Ryan Day is, like, Matt Patricia, if you put his, 3 championships and he's been an NFL head coach, like, his resume might supersede what Ryan Day's done. They're about the same age. I think Matt Patricia's actually a little bit older, but, I mean, you're at DC and called the place for 3 Super Bowl wins, and you're at New England for 20 years, like, minus the 3 in Detroit. Like, I think that's pretty impressive. And so, if I'm Ryan, I'm like, what is going to make me a better head coach? Who am I going to learn the most from? And when you compare the resumes of the people that have been talked about, from the Pittsburgh DC to Joe Cullen to promoting Matt Gray and Tim Walton. Like hiring Matt Patricia is just it would be such a great move for the program, for what they're trying to get done. Nevada, what are your thoughts on that? 'Cause again, I think that this thing's going to get done. I think that he's a guy that's so thorough and he's so detail oriented with what he does that, in this interview process, like when Ryan has, what's your philosophy on defense? How do you coach tackling? What are your thoughts on adjusting your scheme to personnel? Like he's got answers for everything, and they're good answers. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, you think about the New England way was, building guys up and then jettisoning them before they, when they go on their big contracts, and then sticking other guys in there and continuing on down the track. And I mean, New England was famous for doing that. And I think that was one of the things that really struck Brian when they were talking about this. And, you know, I think for Ryan, he's got to be able to, look at a guy and believe that he's going to be able to adapt to the system that we have here and adapt to guys that we have here and new guys, and knowing that not everybody's a first round pick or not everybody's a $5 million athlete. And, I mean, New England, nobody was better than New England at that. New England took ordinary guys and made them extraordinary by working around them and working to their team strengths. And I think that was really something that Ryan was really kind of attracted to, and the whole, through the interview process, through the run up to the interview, and certainly after the interview, that was the stuff that we got from the agent community right away was, Ryan loves that about Matt Patricia. And I think for Ryan, Ryan wanted an adult, and Ryan has found an adult. And that's, that it's so big. It's what he loved about Jim Knowles. I mean, Jim Knowles was a good soldier. Jim Knowles was the elder statesman. Jim Knowles was a guy that you could tell him what to do, and he went out and executed and did it. Matt's going to be different than Jim Knowles because Matt's coming with multiple Super Bowl rings and lots of NFL experience. But it's the same thing. It's about adapting personnel to what you're trying to accomplish. Figuring out that what guys do best, and figuring out how that can kind of overall serve the team goal. So no, I think that's the thing that Ryan liked the most about Matt, along with the experience, and I think that's probably the one of the top three reasons why he's going to get the job.
Well, yeah, and again, how do you know, how do you create pressure when you lose your two best pass rushers like JT and Jack? What do you do? And again, with Matt Patricia, he talks about losing how he lost Chandler Jones. They trade Chandler Jones to Arizona. I mean, Chandler Jones at his zenith was a problem. One of the most physically gifted players in NFL history, and long armed, and just a sensational pass rusher, a guy who, he beat Taylor Wan for I think 5 sacks in the game, and he's difference maker. But all of a sudden when these guys wanted these big contracts, man, I mean, they paid Will Fork and they paid a couple guys, but they traded Seymour, they traded Chandler Jones. Like as soon as it was time to get money, they're like, well, let's flip this guy for a first round pick and kind of reset the clock on the contracts. But it comes down to a lot of scheme. It comes down to I don't want to say ginning it up, but it's like Moneyball. It's like, you lose Jason Giambi and okay, we're going to go hire get David Justice and a couple other guys that are like 38 years old, and but they could get the on base percentage that replicates it. So how do you replace JT and Jack's sack production? Well, is it put CJ Hicks at edge and have him run games and twists up front and confusion and that type of thing, scheme things up? Because again, I've listened to this guy clinic. I've listened to every clinic tape known to man. I've listened to every piece of audio that I could find on Matt Patricia, and like his level of detail, his level of accountability is something that came from Bill Belichick, where it's like, he told a great story on the Julian Edelman podcast about how, they had a bad game. And he had to sit in a meeting with him, Teddy Bruschi, Junior Seau, and Bill Belichick, and they didn't tackle whatever good running back they were going against. So Bill Belichick destroyed Junior Seau. Junior Seau, God rest his soul, played 20 years in the league and is probably, if he's not the best linebacker that ever played, he's in the top 5 because he was just a freak of nature. I think he's the all-time leading tackler in NFL history. And Bill Belichick made him put on his pads at the near the end of the season and go practice tackling versus Ben Jarvis, Greene, Ellis. And I was like, that's the kind of accountability that happens, even if you're junior sale and you're an NFL Hall of Famer. And that's something that, you know, like I love having a coach like that who's like, he's coached literally the best, almost like the best players among the best players are NFL Hall of Famers at every level of the team, from Sayal to Darrelle Revis to Richard Seymour to Rodney Harrison. I mean, so that's the kind of stuff that he can impact on some of these young guys at Ohio State. And again, it's no offense to Jim Knowles. Jim Knowles was fantastic last year, and he's close. He might be the best DC we've ever had after what he did in transforming the defense the last 3 years. But he doesn't have a resume like Matt Patricia in terms of the guys that he's coached and the impact he's had. Because again, it wasn't like Matt Patricia was like some QC. He was the defensive coordinator, getting these guys lined up, getting these guys to do everything. Obviously, had Belichick backing him for everything. But I think that's always something that's you could impart upon the defensive players. Kenyatta Jackson and Caden Curry and Caden McDonald and some of these guys. All the way to Sonny Styles and hey, this is how we use this guy to maximize him. This is how we moved guys around. And New England's famous for moving guys to different spots, moving Devin McCourty back to safety, moving Mike Vrabel to middle linebacker from the edge. And again, I think that's going to be something that's going to be important, because something that Matt Patricia could do to enhance the team is get into these workouts, get into spring practice, evaluate the players, and say, okay, are there guys that we need to move? Like, does CJ Hicks need to become a full-time edge guy? Should Sonny Styles move to middle linebacker? Like, because he's going to be the captain of the defense. Would he fit better there? And put Arvell Will. Who do we need to move to safety? Like, can Malik Hartford and McLean and some of these guys, could they hang in there in safety? Or do we, we've got this surplus of corners. Is there a corner that we need to move to nickel? And have him be the full-time nickel? Like, there's stuff that I think he could have fresh eyes on and see. And he can talk about how he moved certain guys to certain spots and worked out great. Because again, like, the thing about New England is, like, and in the NFL, is you have to adjust your defense to, obviously you have a much smaller roster. You've got 53 active guys and 10 practice squad guys. So guys get hurt, and you got to bring guys in off the street and figure out a way to get production out of those guys. They brought in Kyle Van Noy off the street, and who made the Pro Bowl this year, but he was he was a guy that his career was at death's door, and New England brought him in off the street. He had like 8 sacks in the end of the season. And again, a lot of it is, obviously the guy's going to have ability, but a lot of it is schematically getting guys to do the stuff that makes them the most effective. And that's what is fascinating about what Matt Patricia does. Because again, when he talks about different fronts that he runs, like he runs a 2-4-5, where there's literally 2 down guys, 4 linebackers, and he's got his 5 DBs in there. So, when you've got 4 linebackers and you've got your 2 big fat guys with 2 D tackles, and those other guys are all standing, you can blitz from anywhere, and you're going to end up bringing 4, but it's just, they don't really know where the 4 guys are coming from. So again, a lot of sacks, and I say this all the time, and you guys can go watch the Super Bowl. Like, a lot of these sacks that these guys achieve, some are just incredible effort, great speed rush, or a defensive end or defensive lineman hits a great move. But a lot of them are just confusing the offensive line, confusing the running back, confusing the quarterback, and it helps guys get home. And so that's a huge difference. And again, when you watch what these guys do at New England, you watch what Brian Flores does in Minnesota, which is a lot of the stuff they did in New England, where it's just insanity on defense, and you have no idea where it's coming from, and it screws quarterbacks up, and it screws up, what quarterbacks are trying to read, because they're just so diverse. Like, I mean, I love that kind of stuff, because like the thing I always stress is, if we hire somebody to run the show on offense or defense, how much harder are we going to be to go against? Or how much easier are we going to be to go against? Like, when we hired Chip Kelly, I'm like, oh my God, difficulty, like cranked all the way up, turned all the way up with him. I was like, I've watched this scheme, and with our guys, our speed and our power with his scheme, I was like, it's going to be a problem. And poof, I was right. I mean, 2,000-yard rushers, and JJ's a freshman All-American. He literally made first-team All-American. His freshman's got a tree in the grove already. Mecca, Will Howard. I mean, good as you can get. And I think Matt Patricia could be something like that on defense, because we're going to have to gen it up and be more unpredictable on defense to have anywhere near the level of production we had last year with much better players that we had last year. Nevada, what are your thoughts? We'll start diving into some super chats.
I think your point about position changes is such a good one. And, I think that, for Ohio State next year to approach, how good they were in 2024, it's going to be about that. It's going to be about, seeing, who they can move in there. And that kind of happened when, or playing the right guys. I remember when, with Malik Hooker, when I think it was Shiano came in and was like, or I think it was Shiano came in and it's like, hey, that guy's got to be the safety, and came in and had one of the most productive safety years that we'd ever had, and the guy had been buried on the depth chart. I think having a guy with fresh eyes that doesn't have any preconceived notions about guys that can really look at guys with unique skill sets and do it, and no, I think that's absolutely huge every year, but especially next year, because we've got a lot of holes, man. We are losing so much, and it's I was dreading losing so much before we won the national championship, and now I'm celebrating it just because those guys deserve to move on, and the draft is going to be an absolute celebration of Ohio State football. But man, we are losing some experience. We are losing so many guys on both sides of the ball, but certainly on the defensive side. And you're going to need to have guys step up. You're going to need to have guys, move around, try to find, make big contributions that have literally never contributed before if we're going to have any kind of a success next year, because the season doesn't, it's a tough schedule that starts off with Texas. So this is not, we're not starting off with Liberty or Mercer or anything like that. We're starting off with Texas right off the bat. And you lose one game, you lose that game to Texas, and you can only afford to lose one more the rest of the way, or you're out of the playoff. So it's going to be a heck of a season. We're going to have to hit the ground running, and I think Patricia's ability to identify, with fresh eyes, the talent that we have out in the field and deploy it, that could be really one of the keys to the 2025 season. One of the reasons I'm so excited about him coming on and seeing what type of work he could do with Ohio State right off the bat in the spring.
Well, and something he can do that Matt Guerreri can't do and Tim Walton I don't think can do is he can really push Brian Hartline. Because you gotta say, like, when you do some of these periods where it's call it, and call it means it's practice situations, scrimmage situations where, they put the ball down on the 25-yard line and you call it. Like it's Brian Hartline versus Matt Patricia calling the plays, first down. Okay, we got 2 yards, get 2nd and 8. What do we do? And how hard can Matt Patricia work to confuse Brian and put him in that blender a little bit? Because again, like, when you're going against Matt Guerreri, who he's not a first time play caller, but again, when you haven't called something at Ohio State, it's a different animal than when Matt Patricia. He go walk on that field, he ain't gonna be scared of nothing because he'll be psycho crazy prepared. He's, like I said, once you've called plays in a Super Bowl, I'm not saying that you don't get nervous anymore, but I mean, what could possibly be more nerve-wracking than that when you're like, okay, I got to get ready to defend Julio Jones and Matt Ryan, who's the MVP of the NFL, or we got to figure out a way to stop Marshawn Lynch, or, so I mean, when he gets out there and he's in a college game, he's going to be like, this is a cakewalk, Now, it's still, because it's still the same thing. You got to take away their best players. You got to disrupt what they like to do. And you got to make them uncomfortable. Like, that's all it comes down to on defense. And that was something Jim Knowles is excellent about. But, I think that Matt Patricia being with Belichick for 20 years and Belichick just being a psychotic worker and a psychotic grinder and, no stone left unturned. I think that that's something that will be impacted on the defense. And I'm not saying like our guys aren't like that, but it's always nice to see how somebody who's the best of all time does it, to ever do it, does it. So like, again, if I'm like James Laurinaitis and some of these guys and I'm Matt Guerreri and I get to learn from Bill Belichick's defensive coordinator how to look at the game, how to study the game, how to push guys, how to get guys to tackle better, get guys to study the game better, get guys to work the game better. Like, I'm about that life because, if you promote the guys that have already been in here, it's great. And again, I'd be happy for OG Walt and for Matt Greary, but you got to develop these guys, man. I mean, they're not, they haven't been at the level of Matt Patricia. And again, and I really want him to develop Brian Hartline. I want him to go against head to head with Brian Hartline because Brian's going to be a guy. Brian has a chance to be the next head coach here, but there's a good chance that our fan base is going to turn on just because, again, when you become the offensive coordinator and you guys can, I love Brian, played with Brian, know Brian really well, but he's the receivers coach and you're kind of, and he's done incredible with recruiting. And obviously we've had this incredible run, but when you become the coordinator and you have a couple bad drives, couple stinkers, couple turnovers, like it doesn't matter who you are, like you will get just destroyed. I mean, like Chip Kelly after the Michigan game, after the Oregon game, Jim Knowles after the Oregon game. I mean, it's part of it, man. It's part of the lexicon. So I want Matt Patricia to go against him in spring camp, fall camp, when they clinic together, in staff meetings and they go against each other kind of mentally. Like, I want him to get Brian to be as tough and as hard as he can possibly be because, Brian's first game is going to be, 1 versus 2 game versus Texas, which is about as hard of a first game as you could ever get, especially after we beat Texas. And you guys know how I feel about, the team that lost the last game is going to have an edge. Like Texas has an edge on us. Like we got to go drink champagne and party and smoke cigars and tear up the club and enjoy lifting the trophy. Texas had to go home, cry, get demolished by the fan base and feel sad. And now they get the get back. The get back's real. So it's going to be interesting to see how we get tuned up and get motivated. How do we match the motivated of the disappointed team? Because also the last year that we harnessed, so we lose to Oregon and we get to see Oregon again. You saw how that turned out, 34-0 or whatever it was, and we lose that Michigan game. And our guys, again, go watch Nevada's motion picture, that documentary that he loves, and you're going to see like those guys were the motivation was different after we got that loss to Michigan, and those guys knew that they were walking the tightrope with no net, and they walked across and nailed it. So happy for them. All right, Nevada, any thoughts? And we'll get into the super chats.
No, Texas game's going to be a big challenge. But that is funny, and you're right. Revenge. The revenge game is real, and the team that lost the last one certainly has got it cranked up. And again, not to bring it back to my documentary again, but it really aimed at one play. So it was so much fun to watch, man. I like I said after we won that I was not going to stop smiling for a really long time, and I just can't stop smiling. Nothing that could possibly happen about Ohio State is going to stop me from smiling because we got that natty against all odds, and I'm still so happy about that.
I'm going to get into these super chats. I'm going to do this first one because this might be my favorite super chat I've ever read in my life. Dick Buck, thanks for the deuce. I appreciate you. Said our fans wouldn't be happy if God was the defensive coordinator. Good hire. I'm like, I don't know what would make our. If we got Belichick and Saban to be co-DCs, maybe, but I think they'd turn on him. They turn on them too. We had Bill Belichick as our head coach of the Browns, and people hated him. So, it's just kind of our little curse. Want to show you this. This is like one of Matt Patricia's drills. And now this is just some of the innovation because these guys are always innovating and coming up with new drills. And how do you make it better? And how do you expand and improve? Like, this is such a great drill. Something you never think of, where they talked about, when there's a ball tipped and deflected in the air, who comes up with the ball the highest percentage of the time? And they're like, well, it's the receiver. The receiver is usually the guy here, and this dummy is the receiver. So, they throw the ball and it gets flicked up in the air. And a lot of times the receiver, who's usually a big athlete with great hands, can jump up and pluck it. And either, he gets it or the ball hits the ground, or, it could be a pick, whatever. So he does a drill when there's a tip that trains these guys. And again, this is great, to go kill the guy. So, when there's a batted ball situation and there's a crowd of DBs around it, if you're not the closest guy, which is him, the trail guy, he trains them to go he's like, go knock the receiver out. So if there's a tip, because once there's a tip, there's no more defensive pass interference. So you can go kill the guy. So here's Malcolm Butler, the Super Bowl hero, and he's going out there killing it. And again, like, this is like some of the innovative stuff that these guys do in New England. Because, like, you'd never think, like, let's take 5 minutes of our practice to simulate how to snag a tipped drill, a tip ball, and literally training guys to go knock the receiver out. So I watched a lot of his clinic tape stuff, and I was like, this is so good, because you never think of that kind of stuff. Normally, like, when there's a tip ball drill, you make sure someone goes up and plucks it and protect it, and then everybody go block for whoever. But like with Matt Patricia's, like, he's like, don't go block anybody, go block the fast guys. If you get a pick 6 on defense, like, don't worry about the linemen. If we get ran down by the linemen, then everyone's going to get laughed at. Go take out the receivers and the running backs, the guys that can run them down. Because when there's a pick, 6 of the guys, unless you're playing an athletic quarterback, aren't going to be able to run down a DB. Like the 5 fat linemen and the quarterback probably aren't going to get there. So, he trains his guys, go pick off the fast guys. So I don't know. I just, like, fascinated by some of the discussion. Cause again, I think that he'll add a lot of really intelligent discourse to that defensive staff room, which is why this is the guy I want hired. And I'll be disappointed if I don't get it. Josh Dillon links with 5, Hammer incoming. Also, bet their cheating goes back to 2018. Nevada OH, go Bolts and go Bucks. Go Nikita Kucherov, baby. Nevada, anything on the Hammer?
No, I mean it's coming. I mean we put a tweet out today talking about how the NCAA has determined that the Michigan sign stealing scheme that involved the friends and family were acting at the behest of Connor Stallions, which means they were agents of Michigan, which means Michigan scouted 50 plus times over 2.5 years. I mean, that's how many times they were scouted, 50 plus times. I think the final number is like 57 or 58 or something like that. But that's the extent of the cheating. And March 6th, we'll have the NCAA response, and it's all rapidly coming. The clock is running out for Michigan right now. Hammer definitely incoming.
Well, yeah, and like I saw that, and if someone is out scouting and taking video, like, you have to upload that somewhere. You have to upload that to a cloud server, because Connor Stallions probably put it into one of the film systems like Huddle or DV Sport or whatever these guys use, Catapult. And that's how he was splicing it versus the game film to figure out the signals. Like, it's just not that hard. Once you know what you're doing, and I know exactly what he did, you say, hey, okay, thanks, Mom, for filming the Illinois versus Ohio State game. Upload that to your cloud up to Dropbox, and I'll drag it into the Michigan servers and put it into the Michigan film thing. And so, yeah, this is going to be bad, because again, once you get that stuff into the cloud and in the internet, like, they can find all that stuff. So it's going to be real bad. Josh Dillon, thank you again for the 5. Over and on how many natties Day gives us when he leaves or retires. I'm taking 4. Nevada going over under 4 natties for Ryan Day.
I'm going to go under, only because I don't think he's going to be here. I think he's going to be here like 7 more years, and I think he'll win 2 more. I think he'll leave with 3. And, just because I think he'll want the challenge of the NFL. Not that I'm wishing Ryan to leave. Not that I'm hoping that Ryan leave. I hope Ryan never leaves. I would love it if Ryan Day was our coach forever and ever. But I don't think that's realistic. But I'm going to say 3. So I'll say 3 more natties. But getting to 1, man, size. The first one is by far the hardest. And that is such a universal truth. I mean, the first one is just impossibly difficult. And after that, it's like winning a major in golf. Once you win the first one, it's so much easier to win 2 and 3 and 4 and go on from there. But winning that first one is he got a colossal sized monkey off his back, and it's going to change his life. It's going to change how he coaches. It's going to change how he relates to his players, how he relates to his staff, how he relates to every game. And what a blessing to have him here as a young guy, 45-year-old head coach. We're certainly the benefactors of that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that he's got 7 years or less, and he's going to go to the league because what's going to happen is some owner will offer him so much money because he's going to be so good while he's here. He's such a good quarterback developer. Someone's going to give him a crazy amount of money. I mean, it's going to be like Chip Kelly's got $6 million. And so what's a young Ryan Day worth? A guy who's won a national championship as a head coach, a guy who's the best quarterback developer in the world. You see that's in vogue right now. You look at these guys that are getting hired. I mean, Chip Kelly gets $6 million to be the OC for the Raiders, and Ben Johnson, the kid from Detroit, gets a ton of money to go to Chicago and mentor Caleb Williams. Like, you can't mess around with it. Mike Vrabel, when he goes to the Patriots, like the first call he makes is Josh McDaniels to develop Drake May. Dan Quinn and with the Redskins, his first call is Cliff Kingsbury. I mean, these quarterback developers are worth gold, man. And Ryan's as good as there is. And that's something where eventually these guys that run these teams are going to say, you know what? The only thing I want for a head coach is a QB developer. That's it. Because, I mean, again, I would never hire a defensive coach. I'd hire Ryan because I want to develop a quarterback. Because if you don't have a quarterback in that league, you have no chance. And so you look at the guys that are in the Super Bowl, like Hurts and Mahomes. I mean, 2 MVP candidates year over year. So you can't fake that. So I'm going to say under 4 because I think he's going to go to the league at some point. Pooh Bear 12, thank you for the 10, saying that Matt Patricia is washed because of bad results in 2022. When he called the New England offense is like saying Jessica Alba was unattractive because of the one time she wore a prosthetic nose. Nevada, would a prosthetic nose stop you?
No, it would not. It definitely would not. So this is like one of those Jimmy Durante type of noses. But even then, no, I could get past that. I got to be honest. I could get past that.
What if she wore the full prosthetic Brendan Fraser whale attire? Full thing.
One of my favorite movies of all time, The Whale. I did enjoy that movie. Yeah. Does she still have the $1 billion? Does she still have the $1 billion? If she has the $1 billion, and how long will she wear the whale outfit? Will she wear it forever? Does she have to wear that forever, or it's just a couple of weeks?
She can peel it off on occasion.
Okay,
just when she has to do Ohio State podcast, she has to wear the whale outfit. So I'm
so in. I'm so in.
She'll sit there in the whale outfit and wear a black hoodie that says Buckeye Scoop and short sleeves and say,
"We have that already." That's called Bert Carton. Ah, dun 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 dun. Wow,
he's here all weekend.
That's gotta hurt.
Nevadabuck, the cruise ship comedian. Oh. He's got 2 shows. 2 shows. If you have the late dinner, go to the early show. If you have the early dinner, go to the late show. See Nevadabuck come out here, just wheel himself out there. It's like, hey, I went to the buffet today. It was pretty good. It was good. I can get sushi and I can get frosted flakes at the same time. This is great. Great audience tonight.
Great audience. Big show. Really big show.
D Sunny, thank you for the 5. Is there a big difference in coaching between the NFL and college when it comes to on the practice field and film room? Yeah, because kind of the timing, I guess, of it. There's spring practice, obviously, in college where you're in full pads and beating the tar out of each other. Spring practice is pretty brutal usually. Where in the NFL, there's no spring practice in pads, but there is OTAs, and OTAs an organized team activity, which is essentially a practice. I don't know why the NFL doesn't just call it a practice, but it's a practice that they do in the summer, and you're not in pads, you're just in helmets and jerseys. But I mean, some of those days when I was playing for the Detroit Lions, you wouldn't know that we didn't have pads on. It's like when you're doing a running game fit, a double team, I don't know. You're supposed to block it with no pads other than just to come off the ball. You don't have you're in pads. There are a lot of those times we run these plays and you're killing each other. I mean, we had 2 of our practices. You guys can look this up. This is a true story. 2 of our practices got docked and we were banned from the facility for 2 days because of the physicality of our OTAs. And so it was funny. We show up and they're like, everyone is banned from the facility today. Nobody can be in here. You can't even get a lift in. You have to go home. And we're just like, hell, this is the greatest thing ever. So practice got canceled, and we can't lift. We can't be in here. We can't watch film. Can't do anything. Nope. I was like, hell, this is the greatest day ever. So we went out, we all went home, but in general, it's pretty much the same, and it's really close now that the season is so long in college. And that was the thing before is that in the NFL you'd play, like when I played, we had 4 preseason games and then 16 games plus a bye. So I mean, that season was like 1,000 years long. It felt like the first NFL season because you're playing, especially when you're a guy who's like a late round guy. I mean, you could be playing every single game. You could be playing 20 something games to make the playoffs. It's if you're a wild card team and make it to the Super Bowl, it's 4 plus 4, it's 8. That's 24 games, So when you're in college, you're used to playing 12 or 13. It's a lot. And the physicality is much higher. So, but I don't think there's a big difference in coaching between the NFL and college. Obviously you want to be in the programs as early as you can get and go through the install, learn everything. But, I think it's pretty similar. I mean, they don't really have time. I think in college, a big difference in college is that in general, pre-portal, you kind of had a little bit more of a slower track where, your lineman could be, okay, well, we need to develop this guy. We're not counting on him this year. Or now, like with the portal, I mean, if you're not developing today, then they're going to replace you and you're going to end up transferring to Pitt or to Kentucky or Toledo or wherever. That's a huge difference. So, Nevada, any thoughts on Decent? I appreciate you, my dude, saying, is there a big difference in coaching between the NFL and college when it comes to the practice field and film room? Or do you have anything to add to that, Nevada?
Well, I think there's probably like in the, just as a rule, I think college is a little bit more instructional than the NFL is a little bit more tactical. But yeah, I think they're similar. But you're dealing with less accomplished players, and there's certainly an expectation that a lot of the guys by the time you get to the NFL that you're more conversant, you're more of a finished product, and you have more of an idea of what's going on. Where in college that may or may not necessarily be true. So to me, that's the most fundamental difference.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. I mean, and a big difference, of course, when you're in the NFL before is that guys are getting paid. And that was something that, in college in general, you're recruiting your own room and recruiting your own guys where, in the NFL, I mean, there were guys that were brought into teams that the coaches hated, but the general manager, if there's dysfunction there, liked them. And then you got to figure out how to play them. Or if an owner, it's like Nick Saban talked about, if like an owner signs somebody and pays them a crap load of money, like you have to figure out a way to play him, even if he stinks, even if he's despondent, even if he doesn't take coaching, even if he doesn't do what you got to do. Or in college, like you can just bench the guy. You don't have an owner that grossly overpaid some guy by $20 million and the owner's like, why isn't my corner in there? Why isn't my safety in there? Why isn't my running back in there? It's he stinks. He's late to meetings. He doesn't pay attention. He's despondent. And that's kind of the tough part is when all of a sudden you get these guys that are in there and you can't get them to do what they need to do because they've been paid so much money. So they have no motivation. So, yeah. My tidy can wink. Thank you for the deuce. Seems they're delighted about the Matt Patricia hired on M go below. I don't know. I mean, great. I mean, what do they know? Again, like, I can't judge a guy based upon like his worst run. Him as a head coach in Detroit obviously didn't go great, but Jim Knowles he wasn't a very good coach at Cornell. He was a head coach there and stunk, and that's like his alma mater, I believe. And so they fired him, and and he turned out to be a damn good defensive coordinator. Chip Kelly sucked at San Francisco when he was the 49ers coach. And I said he was coaching Colin Kaepernick, who's a moron, and Blaine Gabbert, who can't play. So you have 2 bad quarterbacks, and he sucked. So did that deter me from thinking that Chip Kelly would be excellent at Ohio State? No, because sometimes you're just in bad circumstances. Like, when he's in Detroit and doesn't have, the players you need in that league, it's tough. I mean, he's got to go see Aaron Rodgers, so that's 2 losses. And, Chicago was good back then. They had good defense. I don't know. Like, I mean, I can't judge a coach by the worst stretch of his life because by that measure, Bill Belichick, since Brady left New England, wasn't very good. That doesn't mean that he's terrible and he can't coach. It just means that, some things broke the wrong way and he didn't have the players that he needed. Nevada, your thoughts on the Michigan folks being delighted that we're hiring Matty P?
Yeah, I think they're just whistling past the graveyard. I mean that's what they do. I mean, you're talking about the most morally vacant, stupid fan base in all of sports. Not even I limit it to college sports, but it's in all of sports. And so listen to what those guys say. I mean, they're irrelevant. I'm telling you, they won't sniff relevancy nationally for another 2 decades. They're just going to kind of slide into obscurity, and it's going to be great. And they'll be like Iowa or something like that. Well, every now and then they'll pop up and have a decent season or something like that, and then they'll slip back down to the norm. I mean, hell, they lost 5 games last year, and they're like throwing around like they won the national championship. And they lost 5 games, so and it ain't going to be better next year. So yeah, I'm thrilled with the Patricia hire, and can't wait for 2025.
Arabia Tube, thanks for the 10. Appreciate you, my friend. It says, what's up with the constant 20 of Carson Hinsman? Hearing that Josh Padilla might be the new center next. Why are we messing around with Carson when all he does is play brilliantly when he's in the game? I don't know. I mean, the new line coach isn't even here yet, I don't think. I mean, he hasn't changed his Twitter. He hasn't been announced officially. So I don't know if he's in the Woody yet. I mean, I would imagine that they'd probably announce him officially before he started work. But I mean, he's going to make the call there on who the center is. I mean, and again, I think Josh Padilla is a tough kid. He's a bulldog, good player. But I mean, we got to figure out what we're going to do with Tigra. We got to figure out what we're going to do with Luke Montgomery. We got to figure out what we're going to do with Austin Sarveld and Carson Hinsman. So we have 4 guys for that interior. They're good players that played well in the playoffs. So it's like, I mean, Padilla is at least number 5 because I didn't see him in there unless it was in a reserve role versus Tennessee. So I don't know how you bench Carson after the run that he had. Again, I've seen stupidity before because he should have started over Tigra from Jump Street because he was really good when he got in there. Tough kid, works hard, does everything right. So again, I don't know what the malfunction is there, but Carson needs to be a leader next year, man. I mean, we don't have any leadership on offense. We have none. So you got to figure out who's going to be. It's going to be because JJ doesn't talk, which again, this is fine. We got a bunch of tight ends that are kind of role players. I mean, offensive line wise, I mean, Carson's got the most experience coming back. I don't know if Ethan Oniwala's what his mentality is, if he's a talker or not. And our backs haven't played at all. We got a young quarterback. So, I mean, the leadership has to come from somewhere. And I mean, hell, Carson's got more starts than anybody on the offense. So even with them screwing around with him, like he still has probably damn near mid 20 starts. But I don't know. I don't think Josh Padilla is going to upset him. And if he does, then Carson he'll make 7 figures in the portal. But I don't think it's going to happen. Nevada, your thoughts on Josh Padilla potentially being our next center?
I think he is our next center just after Carson Hinsman's gone. And I love Josh Padilla. I mean, I love Josh Padilla. But Carson's next. Carson's going to win the Remington before he leaves. I think he is going to be the leader of the offense next year. He is a vocal guy. And no, I just think this is internet blather during the offseason where people are talking and, I wouldn't listen to that stuff. And again, that's not a knock at Josh. I think Josh Padilla is absolutely terrific, but Carson has got 25 starts under his belt and a national championship. So yeah. 7 figures. I mean, if Zen Mikulski or whatever could get $800,000, what would Carson Hinsman go for? I mean, Carson Hinsman would get $2 million easy out there on the open market if he left. So yeah, I don't even want to think about that.
Yeah, I agree with you. Jim Dushel, thanks for the 20. Matt Patricia is the perfect hire with us losing all the elite talent we lost. He did it at New England because they wouldn't give their players max contracts. What say you in Nevada? Well, I mean, that's what I said. I mean, New England, they were the kings of getting guys off the scrap heap, and Andre Carter, a lot of these guys that were first rounders, and it was kind of like they were the guys that they wouldn't buy the car new, but they'd get it when it had 30,000 miles on it, and they'd pay nothing for it, and they'd get all the great years and wear and tear. That's what they do with their players. I mean, they got Alan Branch as a street free agent, and Andre Carter and Rob Ninkovich, and they put them in their system, and they played great, revitalized them, and then all of a sudden those guys would go sign elsewhere and not do anything. So I think it'll be very similar. Nevada, your thoughts with Matt Patricia? Is he the perfect pair with New England always losing their talent? Because again, I think that that's something that's critical. It's like New England, they didn't have like this, they had their core guys. Um, but they were going through a lot of guys, man. And it's like when you're going through a lot of guys and, they had the changing of the guard from the Rabel Brewski era to the Dante Hightower and Gerard Mayo era. And those are big switches, and you got to replace them and get them to be as proficient as the old guys were. And that's not easy to do. But I think that that's something that benefits Matt Patricia is that he's seen these big turnovers where you're like, oh my God, how are we ever going to replace Junior Seau and Teddy Bruschi and Mike Vrabel and Darrell Revis and Rodney Harrison and Vince Wilfork and Richard Seymour. And I mean, those are some of the best players that have ever played football. And it's like, New England doesn't panic and they plug guys in and they figure out a way to still be really good on defense. And a lot of it is the scheme and a lot of it is adjusting the scheme and frankly out scheming teams. I mean, guys, I encourage you guys that are despondent and sad about Matt Patricia, go listen to him talk about how he broke down Seattle and their goal line set, and when they ran that rub route where Brandon Browner jammed the front nose receiver, jammed him, and then Malcolm Butler jumped that route and grabbed it. He's like, the way that he studied Seattle, what they were going to do, how they were going to do it. He's like, I know they're going to pass here. It's too obvious of a run and they get cute. And so we're going to call this coverage. And Brandon Browner, who played in Seattle and knew that play, said, hey, I'm going to jam this guy and kill him and choke him out. And then Malcolm, you shoot your gun and go take the ball. And he did. And like, that's incredible scheme. That's incredible coaching. And Matt Patricia's the DC that installed that. Talked about putting in that goal line defense just for that situation. And when the situation came up, they executed it. And they even talked about, like, they didn't even practice that defense. They put it in a walkthrough the day before. So it's like, when you see this little nuance, like these little like antidotes, you're like, and people don't want to hire that guy. They put in a defense for the Super Bowl that they never even practiced. And when it was the biggest play of the game, like, the 1 yard line, with Marshawn Lynch and they execute the defense perfectly. They have the greatest play in Super Bowl history. Like, they make Malcolm Butler from the 1 yard line pick off Russell Wilson and save the Super Bowl that everyone in the universe thought they're going to lose. And you don't want to hire that guy? That's insane. It's dumb. And I feel bad for anybody that thinks like that, because I can't express how dumb I think those people are. I really can't. Now, does that mean that our defense is going to be on the same level as this past year? Hell no. I'm just telling you, the defense that we had this past year might have been the best defense in the history of college football. Definitely the best defense in Ohio State history, bar none. I don't care about the Michigan loss. I don't care about the midseason Oregon loss. What we did in playoffs and what we did the rest of the year, keeping people out of the end zone, it's the best defense we've ever had. So we're not going to be that good. We're not. But can he gin this up to get us close to that? Probably. With way less talent. Yeah, of course. So that's my 2 cents. Nevada, Jim Dushel, again, I appreciate you, bro. Let's catch up soon. It says Matt Patricia is the perfect hire with us losing all elite talent that we lost. Did it at New England because they wouldn't give their players max contracts. What say you, Nevada?
Yeah, I mean, that was part of the strategy. I mean, it wasn't like they were losing guys. They were getting rid of guys. They were like, okay, this guy's going to go. We're going to trade him. We're going to get a draft pick. We're going to move. We're going to cut the salary, and we're going to put this guy in. I mean, they had a plan. They always had a plan on that, and that's how they kept it going, and that's how they won 7 Super Bowls. I mean, as a Browns fan, and I think that the fact that we've never even been to the Super Bowl, and New England has 7 of them, 7 wins. That's next level thinking, and to just have somebody who was part of that and part of that run would be a great benefit to Ohio State.
Yeah, I agree. All right, Nevada, let's wrap this thing up. Any final thoughts?
No, just I mean, this is an exciting time. I mean, we were looking at the big board of potential defensive coordinator. Matt Patricia was not on my bingo card, but when his name came up, it was like, oh yeah, that's a bingo. That's a good. That's the free space that you put on there, and hopefully this gets announced quickly, and we kind of get on to kind of what it means and start breaking down more of the Matt Patricia system. But I'm excited about it, and definitely exciting times around Ohio State football.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm super excited about it. All right. With that being said, appreciate you guys. If you guys enjoy our content, please leave us a like, Click subscribe. Also click that little alert bell. Again, love you guys to death. Hope you guys enjoyed this show. If you guys want something huge for us, give us a follow on Apple Podcasts. It's something we are stressing. We are growing, and we appreciate all of you guys that have done that. Shout out where you guys are watching from. Shout out who you guys are watching with. Shout out to my Southern Ohio boys. Shout out to all my people all over the country, all over the world watching Buckeye Scoop. We're growing like crazy thanks to you guys, so keep spreading it, the good word. That being said, thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Hope you guys have a great night, and the news is going to keep on flowing, so jump on the message board, buckeyescoop.com. I will see you guys on there. I'm heading over there now. You guys have a great night. Go Bucks.